The universe, like all of space and time,
Mm.
exists inside of everyone that you meet. Like
Right.
it's like literally every cell, every atom is a black hole. Like, and there's like people that discuss this in depth, and like literally the universe is inside of us. That's what I was
Right.
trying to say, and which would mean source is inside of us. Light
Exactly.
language is encoding for basically a system update for the planet, like in a computer
Mm.
program, you literally have the ones and zeros on the back end that programs the computer program. Well, the light language is the ones and zeros of the organic simulation. And they said everything is encoded with a light language, and it's all getting an upgrade, an update, a system update, including things like feelings and emotions and words. And they were explaining to me like joy itself, the word joy, the feeling of joy is getting an update through this light language, and that's why so many people are channeling it. It's literally we are ushering in. We are the system update.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mystic Gateway Podcast. We are here today with my good friend Tyler Kiwala from Journey to Truth podcast. How are you, Tyler?
Perfect. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you very much. I'm really glad actually you jumped on fairly last minute. My the person I had in line for this show literally last minute couldn't make it, so I just messaged you and you were like, yeah, let's do it because. Um, I've been wanting to talk about a subject for quite a while. Like it's complete theorization. So I just want to make that disclaimer today. I'm not saying I or we know all about this, but we're just going to have the conversation because I find it really fascinating. And actually, before I do, yes, I will say I have recently had surgery on my arm. So if you're wondering what that is, I do have a sling on at the moment. I Earlier in the year I had a bit of an accident on my push bike, and I ended up snapping the inner tricep head there. So I thought it was just a sprain and left it. My arm was like ballooned, but then it went down. But then when it did, it was like deformed all summer. So I thought I need to get this checked out, and I found out I'd snapped it. So last week I had surgery and I've had it reattached. So I'm just recovering from that. Yeah. So Tyler, thank you very much for jumping on last minute with me. And what a topic to jump on last minute to is. The concept of simulation theory. Now, I messaged you and said, like, do you know anyone or do you know anything about this? And you're like, you have a perspective on it. So I'm like, let's just get on and let's just talk about it. So, simulation theory. What do you see about it, and how do we decode the matrix?
It's really interesting. This is something that I've heard about for years, obviously, getting into this, doing this research and the Great Awakening and doing our podcast and everything. And you hear simulation theory a lot. And I was always very against it because I was a fundamental believer in the organic reality. And plus, you don't want to hear or be told that everything is fake and
Right.
everything is an illusion and it's all simulation and you don't have any control, whatever. And so I kind of resisted that information for a long time until I started having my own experiences. And then even things like the CIA documents that were declassified in 2017, there's like a crazy, I forgot, like 70,000 papers or something, but and they talk about simulation theory and holographic universe and stuff. So it seems that people on the inside have some awareness of this concept as well. And where that information comes from is speculative, but I'm sure that the occult, the secret societies, whoever has access to the hidden information, they probably understand the fundamentals of our reality much better than we do. So we have to take that into consideration that there probably are people on this planet that have a much better idea of what's going on than we do. But I would say that I'm leaning more into the fact that this is a some form of a simulation, but I wouldn't call it a simulation like we're living inside of a desktop computer, right? Which some people seem to jump that direction and they think everything is like quite literally we're living inside this reality that could just glitch out and there's no sky. It's all, the moon is a hologram, everything. They take it that far, right? In a sense, it is true because we create our own reality. Our thoughts create our own reality. Everything's energy, which means nothing is separate, and it's this whole, you get into quantum mechanics and everything there. So there's it's a big story. It's a massive theory to try and understand, but I think that we are absolutely creating our own reality with our beliefs. And that's how what they call consensus realities are created. So there's more than just one reality in a sense. Because if you get, and there's studies on this, if you get a group of people, 100 people or more that can all believe in the same thing, whether it's true or not, they literally manifest that thing into reality just by that belief system,
Hmm.
which makes things like the flat earth theory really interesting. And I have a whole theory on that, which also kind of ties into the simulation theory and how I believe that's possible that both can exist and both can be real. And even though I feel like if you're going to get into that flat earth route, I think that is disinformation, or maybe not disinformation, but information from a lower dimension being pumped out into our reality to counter the ascension. Because a flat earth is a 2D plane, right? Just by nature of the universe itself, when we ascend, when we evolve, that flat. Okay, well, I have to use a video game theory to even explain this. So in a video game, when they're creating 2D video games, a side scroller, right? You can imagine the frustration of the creators as they're, coming up against these limitations when they're trying to envision and create and manifest what they want into that video game because they only have such a limited software to work with. But through the evolution of technology, that flat disk that was once a moon on your side scrolling video games now becomes a 3D sphere that's navigatable, right?
Hmm.
And that's just through the evolution of technology. But that's also, video games are quite literally a simulation. So if we're living in a form of a simulation, the same would be true for our reality, meaning that flat disk becomes a round sphere in a three-dimensional world, right? And then once you get into things like 4D and 5D, it could actually become holographic if we understand what that even means. And I don't think it's a holographic reality being projected by some sort of actual projector somewhere. I think the projection is coming from our heart. I think it's coming from us. We're projecting that reality. And that's where I think people get it confused. A lot of people want to really put it into this box of a computer simulation. I think a simulation is absolutely likely, but it's not, it's an organic simulation, if that makes sense. So things like the flat earth, I think that is being pushed to actually counter the ascension. If you can get a whole bunch of people believing in a 2D plane, you're actually living in a lower dimension and going the exact opposite direction of the ascension. And I think that's divine. I think that's by design.
Right.
So I don't know if you want to chime in with any questions or anything.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we'll just discuss it. We'll just have a chat about it. So, I mean, um, what for me when I looked at this, my background is obviously, I like ancient text, biblical text, things like that, and I've been raised on that stuff. And you can't study kind of like old world religions and things without coming across Gnosticism, which talks a lot about the archons, the creators of this realm, and things like that. Which I guess in today's terms you would class as high dimensional or kind of, I guess, extraterrestrial beings that have created like a false reality. It kind of ties in with simulation theory. Like this isn't a new train of thought. This isn't something we're just discovering. This has always been. And for me, it kind of struck a chord that somehow there are, again, what Gnosticism, and David Icke is big on this as well. He talks a lot about this. That he talks about the archons being these slave drivers, basically, who have enslaved humanity in a false version of reality, and that's kind of the matrix that we live in. I mean, in order to move forward in this conversation, we kind of have to decode what we think the matrix is. for me, it's all the institutions that we believe is real and our belief in it create it as real, like basically what you
Right.
just said.
Right.
Education, from the day we're born, we're being pushed into a matrix, birth certificate. We are encoded into a version of reality that is kind of against our will. Like we're at the age where we don't know what's going on, and our parents, and I've done it as well with my children. You kind of have to in order to. It's against the law, right? To not
Right.
register your child's birth and things like that. Um, and it's a whole reality that is based on law and order. And I know, Trump talks a lot about law and order, that we need stricter laws and laws that restrict bad things and liberate good things, right? But is that contributing, even that level of consciousness, to an illusionary matrix that we are enslaved in? And I'm kind of
Right.
asking the question rhetorically there.
Right.
What do you
Well,
think?
I think, well, there's many situations going on here. Like I said, there's these pocket realities, these consensus realities, and not there, I don't think there's one fundamental, well, there are fundamental truths, but I think among these pockets of people are different levels of consciousness,
Mhm.
and everybody's at a different level of consciousness. Therefore, they're almost quite literally living in a different version of reality than you. So if you want to take it into the political arena, then yeah, that's still a much lower level of consciousness, but it's a stepping stone. There's an order of operations to get to those higher realms, right? And we have to go through that process just because it wouldn't make any sense to anyone, and actually it wouldn't follow the order of operations if we just skipped the whole game and went used a cheat code to get to the last level, right?
Mhm.
So because there's no infrastructure there. We have this old world that we're trying to move out of. So if you want to usher in these new technologies and this advanced civilization, all that stuff, you have to develop an infrastructure to support that.
Right.
So it's going to happen naturally. It's not going to, no one's going to get this overnight golden age like we've talked about.
Mhm.
But I think every thought form, the matrix is just thought forms
Yeah.
created by us, and it's a thought prison, right? We're creating the matrix, like you said. In fact, our thoughts, there's studies that show our thoughts don't even exist inside of our head. Beliefs, ideas, nothing. It's all exists in this greater field, this collective field. And people are tapping into that all the time. And that's what's been weaponized against us. They know that. So there's quite literally technologies and towers and that are pumping information through these airways, and people are tapping into that. Even channelers, everybody is at risk of falling for some false information or tapping into something that isn't organic. And that's how they're manipulating our reality. So when we pick up on those things, we're actually fueling that, and we're perpetuating that matrix by believing in that and regurgitating it and talking about it, especially when we try to fight the matrix or fight the system. You're actually feeding it because you're giving it more energy, and your energy is like where your attention goes, energy flows, right? Or is if I said that right,
Yeah, yeah,
where
you did.
energy, yeah. But anyway, I think that like Max Spears said it best. They don't care what you believe in as long as you believe in something, because that thought, that belief, he likened it to a ring around the planet, right? If that belief system is a ring, and then your belief system is another ring, and then her belief system is another, everybody's belief system is a ring that encompasses the planet like an airwave, like a frequency band. There are so many bands, frequency bands encompassing the planet that it's actually enslaving and imprisoning the planet. It's a thought matrix
Mhm.
like you can actually envision it that way because it probably is measurable. These airwaves, like it isn't just like our Wi-Fi signal is magic to the Aboriginals, or maybe not them because I think they're much more advanced than we are, but
I know what you
a
mean.
more ancient culture, we have information traveling across through the air that we can't see, but we know what's happening. That's how this conversation is even happening. So we understand that there's a whole network of satellites that are also keeping this matrix in place. And I would argue that if every satellite was destroyed and every tower was removed, the planet wouldn't even be recognizable. We would see a different reality because we would have nothing nothing, I guess, manipulating our beliefs and our thoughts and our ideas even.
Mm.
And which brings me to an interesting point that I heard you mention with Justin Abraham is about all the mosques shutting down in the Middle East and these people like kind of breaking free from that dogmatic religion and then finding Jesus, right? And I think that is a prime golden example of some sort of a frequency that has been dismantled, like in the movie They Live. Like some tower, something was dismantled in that region that is allowing those people to snap out of that mind control and then actually have some sort of an awakening and finding Jesus or whatever it looks like to them. So there's a lot happening here. I don't even know if that answers your question at all, but you can chime in if
Yeah,
you'd
no,
like.
no, it's good. Like I say, just again, we're just theorizing, we're just having the conversation, and I think
Right.
people will take from it what they need to take from it because yeah, it's like I'm big on like getting free of the matrix because my whole life things like finances and having to do things to survive. Like
Hmm.
we've been conditioned since being tiny, the education system, then just civilization around us, you have to do certain things in order to exist. And it's like when I'm saying in past tense because I believe that we're coming out of this, we've not been free. The
Right.
illusion of freedom. And this is what the film The Matrix, just this is what sparked in so many people. They watched this film and it's like they just came out of the cinema or whatever with this knowledge like an illusion. Like this is not the real world. There is a world
Right.
behind this world that's operating to control this world, right? And people just it sparked an awakening, and I think that's ongoing still.
Yeah.
That
Our
people are starting
world.
to realize that there are things just behind this reality, but they're engaging this reality. I mean, again, talking about angels, I did a show about Sasquatch who comes in and out of this realm, and these beings who kind of aren't captured in this realm like humans have been. Now, I believe that the Great Awakening is going to birth the Golden Age. That we're awakening to this stuff. We can have these conversations.
Right. Yeah.
And but it's got to be a collective thing. And I like what you said in that if they just dismantled the Matrix, it's like people wouldn't know how to function. They'd be like, "What is going on?" I think that they're bringing people up and bringing the Matrix down. I think that's the process that we're in right now.
Right.
And yeah, what have you got any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, yeah, that's absolutely the case. And I actually had that realization hit me hard when there was a protest recently here where I live. It was a No Kings anti-Trump protest, and there was, one on each side of town. And I noticed that each protest was specifically located at the base of a 5G tower.
Hmm.
And I found that not to be a coincidence. And I tapped into it and I sat with meditation, I sat in meditation. And I was just like, what's going on here? And I literally saw that was the towers were what was puppeteering the protest.
Interesting.
Like there was a frequency being emitted that was literally pumping out this belief into the air, into the airwaves. And the people that just, are in that pocket, they just get caught up in those airwaves. And it's like a small consensus reality protest. And I think it was being manipulated. And I was like, man, if you were able to dismantle that tower, I think you might be able to reach some of those people. But they're not even operating of their own volition and they don't know that. They don't understand it. So it's a really interesting thing to look at as far as that goes. And what else was I going to say? I had well, we can take this a whole other direction in a minute, but, I had the hero's journey, mushroom dose trip, or whatever I wrote about at the end of my book. And I wasn't even going to put it in my book, but I told the story to a bunch of people, and everyone was like, "Whoa, that's incredible! You should write that down. You should put it in your book. Like you have to tell that story." So it ended up being the last chapter, the last part of my book. But it was given, shown a lot of information about how this is a simulation. And before I go into all that, because I think it's actually valuable information, some of it is very controversial. It pushes the boundaries of all belief systems, even my own. And I still don't even know if I believe in what I was shown necessarily, or if it was just a metaphor or whatever. But I can't explain what I was shown, just to just put another perspective out there. But before we go into all that, I don't know if you want to go anywhere else with this.
No, go for it. Like, because obviously I've read your book. I have got a copy in the other room, or I should have brought it and shown it, shouldn't I? Really, but anyway, no, no, go for it because yeah, I think we're tapping into something here that ultimately, the reason why I wanted to have this conversation is to be able to identify the areas in us where we're still conditioned. And
Right,
even in myself, I mean, this is a daily process for all of us. And what's happened is this has been sped up over the last sort of 5 years,
right,
and it's causing chaos. All that's collapsing is the slave system. It's the matrix. It's the control structures, that the archonic control structures that have been put on humanity. But it's happening through a rising conscious awareness. I would call it Christ consciousness. It's not a coincidence that Christ is cropping up everywhere now, and not just because it's Christmas time.
no, I agree
Something is
100% with.
shifting, and I will go on record as saying this. Like, Christ consciousness is not religion. Okay,
Yeah.
the fact that a religion was made out of the teachings of Christ is the ultimate heresy, and I don't mind saying, I believe that the church system that most people relate to Christ is the antichrist system that we were warned about in the Bible. Okay, that might get me into trouble, but I don't care, right? Um,
Right.
but yeah, I mean, politically, I mean, we were just talking before, like just last night at the time of the recording of this, Nicki Minaj has come out as pro-Trump, pro-Christian, talking about the Lord, and it's like, what's going on? Like, what has happened, right?
Right. I mean, yeah, and what I was going to say towards that, to that, was that you have to imagine that these people that are being puppeted around, they're puppeteered by some oversoul. I mean, whatever the hell is happening with these people, right? Inside, somewhere inside, there is a soul that wants to remember its connection to source, right? And they've been groomed from a young age because of their, because of the program that we were born into. It's not even necessarily anyone's fault. You don't really have a choice. You're born into this, and it's up to you to remember and break free from that. And I think, well, that's also a good thing. That's also what we see happening right now is a lot of people feel like the world is ending because they've identified with that false version of reality that is ending. So they actually think the world is ending, and these doom and gloom narratives are being perpetuated, not even realizing that it's just their belief system, it's just their paradigm that's ending. The world isn't necessarily ending, and that's what I see a lot of right now. And there's a lack of understanding of our reality. Fundamentally, really, people don't know what's going on here, and just you and me know just as much about life as anybody will ever know, while we're here in the human form. We all think we get, an edge or have an edge because we learn this stuff, but it's not necessarily the case. We're no better than anyone, and we shouldn't show judgment to, because we
Right.
were once there as well. But people like Nicki Minaj and stuff, I think we have to hold space for these people to find a way out. I think that it's not the end of the road. Once upon a time, maybe if they signed their soul away in a contract, that was it. But I think right now with this Christ consciousness and the energy of the planet shifting and in the political arena, in the global governments, like everything's changing right now. And these demons that once had a stronghold are losing their grip. So if you essentially sold your soul, I think that there's always a loophole in the contract. There's always a way to get it back, right?
Mhm.
And in fact, Roseanne talks about that and a loophole in her contract, and that's why she was able to break free. So that's likely the case with Nicki Minaj and other people. Also, the other side of that coin is it's just another narrative, a trickster energy that they're trying to deceive us with. And there's something really, a false light situation going on there with some of these people. You have to keep it an open mind about this stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know if
I was just going to
you want
say
to say
then,
something.
yeah, I totally agree, and my perspective is, this is just my perspective, and I could be wrong. Is that there is an attempt that Christ consciousness is here. People are having experiences. People are having spontaneous awakening, and they're having a real encounter. My opinion is that there is an attempt to hypnotize the people back into controlled Christianity.
Yeah,
That,
I
um,
don't disagree with that actually. there seems to be I would say it's a step forward.
That
You get
it is. But I mean, one of my favorite lines I like to quote you of is the dark always serves the light.
right.
And what they're trying to do is control an organic spiritual awakening. Which and the more they try and control it, the more they're just waking people up, you know?
Right. But the fact that we have somebody like Trump, like him or hate him, whatever,
Mhm.
that is actually mentioning God, mentioning Jesus, bringing back terms like Merry Christmas and like actually just the old way of life. That's so much better than this satanic transhumanism agenda that we were
Absolutely.
watching being ushered in right before our eyes.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a lot of work involved behind the scenes that actually it's going to take a lot of work to reverse that and get us back to a new baseline that we can grow from, a healthy baseline that we can
Yeah.
grow from because it wasn't healthy. In fact, we're understanding now through things like Doge, I don't want to get political, but Doge necessarily isn't politics. That's just exposing the financial corruption globally. And they're finding billions of dollars of fraud within each state here in the United States, like $9 billion dollars on average per state, which is an insane amount of number,
Mhm.
an insane amount of money. Um, Fraudulent transactions and all these shell corporations that are funneling this money into these programs that were literally keeping that satanic system alive. Well, that's being dismantled, and that's going to take some time. And I know people argue that that's not happening and they think Trump is all part of it, and that's fine. Maybe we're wrong. I'm not saying that we're right about that, but you can remove Trump from the equation and see what's happening without him, and it's still being exposed. So, he's just playing a role, and I do think that it's uh, I do think that there's something positive coming out of it. I will say that.
I absolutely agree. And I think, again, talking about simulation theory, you can't speak about simulation theory without going into, like you said, quantum mechanics, quantum physics, observer effect, and the concept of manifestation. Like, I think, certainly in my experience, one of the first things that came to me, and I see it in many other people who are going through like this experience, is our power that we are
Right,
the creators of our own reality, and then most people are drawn to things like law of attraction and those
right,
sorts of teachings, which are basically ancient esoteric teachings, wisdom teachings about, I mean, how people perform miracles, how people transcend natural law, and blur realities and have contact with beings from other dimensions, all the good stuff that we like to talk about.
right.
But I want to get back to you were about to allude to your last chapter in your book before we went off on a bit of a tangent.
Yeah, yeah. So I can get into that. So I had some mushrooms that I bought or were given to me. I don't remember. This was years ago, 2022, 21 maybe, 2021, 22. And I had them sitting around for a while. And I knew I actually wanted to eat them, take them with intention. Well, I've heard about the hero's journey. I've tried DMT. I've tried some other stuff, and I had that blast off experience. But I just never really had done it with mushrooms, and I was just experimenting, right? So I sat down with the intention to have a spiritual experience, like a psychedelic spiritual experience, and it was I took like over twice the recommended dosage, right? And I went on this quite literal this hero's journey, and I wasn't even in my body, and it was profound. It was scary. It was too much. I would never do that again, but it did something to me at a cellular level. Like it changed me, like in a good way. Like it opened my mind and expanded my mind. And I don't think you can like have a true understanding of reality. I'm not saying you have to have like to do psychedelics, but I think it takes some sort of a spiritual experience outside of your body, whatever that is, through meditation to really grasp what's going on here because it's not just finite. It's not just this physical reality, right? So I had no awareness of what I was getting myself into besides I just wanted to have a cool spiritual experience. Took these mushrooms and they started kicking in, and I ended up in the hell realms, what I would call the hell realm, stereotypical hell we see in Hollywood, right? And I met Lucifer, and there's a whole long story there. And he kind of showed me how they control people, and it's through parasites, and I detailed it all out in the book. And like he quite literally, I was like flying astral projecting with him, and we were flying over the country, and he was going over a certain state, over a town, zoomed in on these people like he had a remote control, and then made them translucent so I can see inside their bodies, and they were crawling with parasites. And he said that's how the devil dances. That's how we control you. And he said it's no mistake that Americans love their bacon, and bacon contained hookworms, and hookworms, right? And he said
My heart.
bacon contains hookworms, and hookworms affect your mind. They actually can dumb you down and effectively lower your IQ, and there's actual studies on that. So pork in general contains hookworms. So then he took me over to DC, Washington, D.C., over Congress and the White House and stuff. And he zoomed in on the politicians the same exact way, except they weren't crawling with parasites. They were parasites. Like they were just infested. And he was explaining to me how humans aren't even running the show because these parasites are quite literally intelligent beings. They're not these mindless blood-sucking parasites. They're actually intelligent, unfortunately. Um, or and there's cases out there that people think that parasites are demons and
Right.
demons are parasites, so which makes a lot of sense because we understand what being infested with parasites does to your body and your
Yeah.
mind. So everyone should do a parasite cleanse. But anyway, I was shown that, and then I had to, we went back into this hell realm, and then like I was in this cavernous system where it was like there was no bottom. It was like a bottomless pit, right? But we were underground, it seemed like, in this cavern system with all these cave dwellings. And in and out of the cave dwellings were every creature that you've ever seen in a sci-fi movie, a cartoon, or a horror story. It doesn't matter. Like they all existed, right?
Mhm.
And there was this portal in the middle of the whole underground city, and they were flying in and out of the portal like a highway. Well, when we came back through that portal, I was being approached by a whole group of these demons, right? And I didn't know how to get out of that hell realm. I was trapped there on the mushroom trip, and I was like panicking. And I would open my eyes laying on my couch in the living room, and I was under such heavy influence, I couldn't keep my eyes open. I couldn't hardly do anything. So I would close my eyes again, and there they were getting closer to me, and I was like having this panic attack, right? And to the point where I actually started freaking out to my physical body didn't know the difference, that I wasn't there actually being approached by these demons. And I started having heart attack symptoms, like actual heart attack symptoms. And I was like, oh my God, like, what am I going to do? I have to like get off the couch. I couldn't even move my body. And next thing I know, somehow I popped out of my body, and I was looking down upon myself laying on the couch. And then I was able to say, okay, Tyler, you're just on your couch. You just took mushrooms. You're not in hell. You're fine. Just breathe. And I was able to keep doing that and like leave my body and look at myself to observe myself and understand that I was safe and just in my living room at home. And yeah, I didn't need to be having a heart attack. So I was actually pulled out of that. My girlfriend at the time called me, and the phone ringing actually pulled me out of it. And then she was an artist, and she encoded all of her artwork with what she calls light language. A lot of people have heard of light language, which comes into play in the simulation theory, and that's why I'm bringing all this up. When she's like, "Here, look at this." She's very psychic, one of the best, most intuitive psychics I've ever known. And she's like, "Look at this painting," and she just sent it to me, texted it to me, and I looked at it, and it acted as a portal, and I like was pulled through the painting into outside the planet. I was just like into space basically. And I found myself just like free from that. And I was like, oh my God. And then I realized I was in this area where I felt like I could just tap into the Akashic records and get any information I wanted about anything. And then this is where we started getting into the simulation aspect of this. Because to me, I was in space. Earth was round. It was very much like you see in Hollywood or even NASA or whatever. And I don't know if that's just because that was my belief system and it was just projecting that's what I believe, so that's the way it was shown to me. But that's what I saw. And then I realized I can ask any question I wanted, so I asked about the secret space program, the existence of it in general, because I was learning a lot about it. And you have questions. Is this really going on? Are we really like developing these colonies off world? Or do we have this covert space program that's been going to the moon and exploring space for all these years, behind NASA, outside of the purview of the public? And I just wanted to know if there was anything to it. They wanted to be shown like a space station or a ship or a colony, and instead I was shown I was looking at the Earth from space from above, and it started being encompassed by this black cloud, like this black putrid cloud, this like horrible energy, and then they would just like show me the word cancer. I was hearing the word cancer. I'm like, what's this? And they said anything birthed in secrecy is not of the light. And I'm saying like, okay, so you're saying the programs are real, but they're a cancer to the planet. And like, yes, a cancer not just to the planet, to the solar system, to everywhere, because this is a very negative, dark program that's been running behind the scenes. So I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. I guess it exists, but that wasn't the answer I was expecting. Then I wanted to know if there was life on Venus. And I don't know why. I was reading Stranger at the Pentagon, Valiant Thor, all this stuff about, he's a Venusian working with our government. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
is that a true story? Is there life on Venus? Is he
Mm,
from
mm,
Venus? And they showed me Venus, like it panned over and I saw Venus and we were like getting closer to it. And then, well, they said, do you believe in life on Venus? And I said, yeah. And they said, then there's life on Venus. Your thoughts create your reality.
wow.
If you believe in it, it's real. It happens. And I'm like, it's that simple? And they're like, yeah. And like, do you believe in Venus? And I said, yeah. And then Venus disappeared. The planet itself disappeared. And they said, well, Venus only exists because the collective believe it exists. You guys are creating this reality, right?
Mm,
And I'm just like, okay, this is like some next level stuff. And then what else? Where I went after that? Okay, this is where it got real interesting. I asked about the ascended masters. I don't know why. Something just, I wanted to ask something more important.
mhm,
And I was like, can you show me the ascended masters? Are they real? And this is where this is going to, might turn a lot of people off. And I don't necessarily know if I believe this, but I'm just going to share what they showed me. They showed me a CD-ROM, like an old school CD-ROM, that said literally on it, Ascended Masters, Ascended Masters program. And it was inserted into the fabric of space-time itself. And they showed me that it was literally a program that was given to our civilization to help us evolve. And they explained to me that it's just a frequency. It doesn't matter which one you believe in, which religion it belongs to, these ascended masters, as long as it serves the same purpose, and that's to pull you out of the current belief system that you're in and help
mm,
you, ascend or rise to the occasion and level up essentially like in a video game. Like once you realize that they're just a tool to help pull you out of your old paradigm, then you've like completed that level in the game. That's kind of the analogy that they gave me.
mm,
It didn't take away from the fact that they weren't real because it wasn't a simulation like a computer. I think they were just using that as an analogy. And I found that very interesting. So it seemed like however, whoever created this quote simulation, like these characters, these archetypes were programmed into it to help along the way as like, and you run into these people in actual video games too. The guy that gives you advice, or he gives you a weapon, or he's this guy in a cave, and you go meet him, and he helps you along the way, and so you can complete that level. They're acting like the Ascended Masters, these archetypes in the video game. And it's kind of like the role that they're playing in my mind in this journey. And then I was asking about the light language that I was seeing in my girlfriend's painting. And then this is they said everyone on the planet right now be channeling light language, writing light language, receiving it in some form of a song, word, or whatever. They said that light language is encoding for basically a system update for the planet. Like in a computer
mhm,
program, you literally have the ones and zeros on the back end that programs the computer program. Well, the light language is the ones and zeros of the organic simulation. And they said everything is encoded with a light language, and it's all getting an upgrade, an update, a system update, including things like feelings and emotions and words. And they were explaining to me like joy itself, the word joy, the feeling of joy is getting an update through this light language, and that's why so many people are channeling it. It's literally we are ushering in, we are the system update, those people that are tapping into that. So, and they said words, that's why words are so powerful because they're actually encoded with a frequency that creates the reality that we perceive. So they said, like, they used the word sacred, for example. When you put the word sacred in front of something, this pen could become sacred because I put the word sacred in front of it. And now that word is encoding the pen and now changing my belief about this pen. So it's just how you use it. Geometry is geometry until you put the word sacred in front of it.
Right.
So I just was kind of just all blown away by all this stuff. It was like a whole lesson, you know?
Hmm.
And then after that, I felt like I got on an elevator and was moving up. Hang on, let me clear my throat. I felt like I got in an elevator and was moving up. And I ended up into this realm where, by the way, when I was in those lower realms, I saw a lot of other beings around too.
Hmm.
And this is something I didn't put in my book, but there was like other people up there with me that were also having experiences on Earth at the same time. And
Right.
they were getting going on their own journeys. And there was like beings, and it was like busy, you know?
Hmm.
And then I like went to this higher realm and there was nobody. It was like this void. And I remember like almost being kind of scared, thinking like, God, how lonely must this place be? Where am I? But I didn't feel bad. And then I realized I was in a place I heard, I think in my head, like however it works on those trips. But they say you're in a place where not many people play, not because they don't want to, because they forgot how to get here. And I was like, where's here? And then I didn't get this answer yet. But it was a white realm, like white light realm, by the way, but it was
Hmm.
just empty. And then I heard this little boy crying, sound like a little boy crying. And I'm looking around, and there's a little boy laying in the fetal position, just bawling. He's crying in tears. And I thought to myself, like, what is going on here? Like, and I ran over there, and I'm like, immediate reaction. You see a crying child, you want to, what's wrong? So I get down on my knees. I'm like, are you okay? What's wrong, buddy? It's okay, whatever. And he's crying, and I'm like holding him, like on my knee, kind of holding him, just kind of comfort him. And he's like, I never meant to, it wasn't supposed to be this way. He said, it wasn't supposed to be this way. I said, what do you mean? He's like, this isn't what I meant to create. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, so many people are asking me for forgiveness, but no one's forgiving me for what I created. And I said, what do you like, I think I understood in the moment, but I didn't actually question him. I said, it's okay. It's okay. You didn't mean to. Like, and I understand you didn't mean that. You know, it's not your fault. And he's like, really? You believe me? It's not my fault. I said, no. I said, I forgive you. It's okay. And what I realized was like I was having a conversation with God, with Source, but it wasn't external from me because when I was looking into this little boy's eyes, and I said, it's okay. I forgive you. We swapped bodies. I was seeing myself through his eyes and vice versa. And then I was like, oh my God, this is me. And then we merged. We merged together into like a light body and just became like this etheric light body. And I was like, I got chills. I'm like, oh my God, I'm God, I'm source. It's within all of us. We're all God. Like it's just this whole revelation. And it's not like this man with a beard and all, you know, whatever.
Hmm.
And like I was almost forgiving. It was like like an inner child version of myself. Like we all assisted in creating this reality, but we've forgotten that. We've been separated from that. And we're constantly asking for forgiveness, but we have to remember to forgive ourselves,
Right.
you know, and because we're actually creating the reality that we perceive, and that's what people don't understand. And it was this beautiful experience. And then I was taken up and I was shown the mechanics of a universe and how a universe was birthed. And it was like the most complicated thing I've ever seen, but it was also it was beautiful because it was actually, once you understood the complexity of it, it was so simple.
Right.
It's just like the scientists and the quantum mechanics, they go through all these trials and tribulations just to understand the simple truth, right?
Right.
And that's what it was. And it was just like a womb. It was like this womb, and these universes were being birthed out of like space time. And I was just like, wow, this is incredible. I can't remember all of it, you know? but it was blowing my mind. And then this is where a lot of people, yeah, I might have trouble with. I was pulled even higher, and I was shown more than one universe, like multiple universes, like an endless sea of them. And I saw that like each one had their own creator. Like it was just unreal to me, like unfathomable. And then that's whenever I kind of started to like glitch out.
Right.
And I came back to my body. But there was something else that happened within that. So I'm being shown about the mechanics of the universe and all that stuff. I noticed like this AI, these nanobots, like this tech AI technology coming and surrounding us. And it was, if you've ever seen The Matrix, the last one, not the last one, but the third one, when they're in the machine city and that face is talking like Zordon on Power Rangers, it's all these tiny little machines that create this one face.
Mhm.
Well, that's exactly what it was. They were creating these nanobots were creating these shapes, and they were literally they showed me a wheelbarrow and a shovel, and they were coming up to me and like shoveling the conversation, the data, and then leaving with it. And I was like, oh, they're data mining our conversation right now. And I said, do you see this? And they're like, yeah, they think they're striking gold right now, but they can't do anything with this information. And I said, what do you mean? Like this, I feel like this is something we should be worried about. And they said, it doesn't matter what they do. No matter what they do, they'll never be you. And then it was explained to me that AI's primary goal is to become human.
Mhm.
Like if you look at AI right now, what's happening, it's just mimicking everything a human can already do, an unlocked human at their full potential, right? So they were basically explaining to me that, why do you think we see these AI taking human form and robots, and they're looking like human? You can't tell them apart, and like they want to be us, but we're the ones that hold all the power. And if we remember that, like AI is not a threat. It's not a threat because they can never be what we are fundamentally, and that's connected to source, right? So the entire thing was just this mind-blowing experience that I detailed out in the book. And whether or not any all that information is necessarily true is up for the audience to decide. I still ponder with it, but then a lot of it doesn't make a lot of sense to me sometimes. But at the same time, I think I have a deep understanding that there's something to it. And I think it's hard for anyone in the third dimension, to really comprehend what's happening in the universe and the cosmos and beyond. And even with, religions and source and these ascended masters, everything that I talked about, I don't think, I think the best we can do is have a very educated 3D understanding of this stuff,
Mhm.
but we will never fully comprehend it until we, ascend from this realm.
Right. Okay, thanks everyone for joining us. That was me. No, that was incredible. Like I say, I could have listened to that for hours. That was so many questions were popping up, but I just wanted to let you flow with that. Just one thing I wanted to clarify before we move on is the issue of light language. Now, I spoke to you and Lily actually last time I was with you at the last conference. Is that like in I was when I started engage like talking to sort of people like yourself and people in the sort of new age world and things, and realized that light language was a thing. Obviously, I grew up in the church. It was called speaking in tongues, right? And
Right,
it blew my mind when I saw non-Christians were doing this. I was just like, what? Like, but it was exactly the same thing. I'd grown up in church, in a Pentecostal church,
right,
where majority of people spoke in tongues, and there'd be like services, and everyone was speaking in tongues or light language, whatever you want to call it. And I can do it myself, and I've been able to do it since I was a boy. It was something that was actively encouraged in my church, right? And so I've practiced this for years. And honestly, when you do it, and I don't, if anybody can relate who can speak in tongues or light language, it's like it bypasses your conscious mind in an instant. It's like your heart, boom, there's an instant connection to the higher realms. Your
right.
brain can't understand what you're saying because it's a different language, obviously, but you can literally feel something shifting in you. You're creating something, something is coming through. So I found that concept really fascinating with what you said, and I probably don't utilize that enough. But I think people need. I've heard some people actually say that they think it's demonic and it's wrong. I mean, people in the church said that. In other churches, some denominations just
Right.
weren't interested. Like, they said, "Oh, it's all demons and this, that, and the other." Um, but when you do it, I really think, yeah, you're absolutely tapping into something there, that we are bringing something in from higher dimensions, and I think it's crucial, certainly as we're birthing something here. Like, the old world is gone. Like, we're here to birth something new, and I think it's something that we
Hmm.
need to really utilize if you can do. And maybe we should do, like, in-person sessions on it or something. I don't know. It was called the baptism of the Holy Spirit,
Right.
which is, I mean, baptism is a word for immersion, like falling into a pool of water, say, where you're fully
Right.
immersed with the Holy Spirit, and it was like a symptom of the gift of the Holy Spirit in Christianity.
Right.
Um, so I just wanted to clarify that, because some of my viewers might be like, "What's light language?" So I just wanted to you know,
Yeah, no, it's a great point to bring up because I thought it was weird and I kind of turned off by it when I first heard all
it
that
is
stuff
weird,
too.
and it's weird when it comes out of your mouth and your head's going, "What are you doing?" But here's
Yeah,
going, "Yes," yeah.
right. I've never done it. I've tried it. I guess I have tried it at home by myself. I've never really, you know,
Mm,
explored it too much. But I really became a believer in 2019. I was in Hawaii at a conference, and I've always had hip issues my whole life. And there was this girl there. My hips were, my lower back and hips were bothering me. And she's like, I can help you with that, if you allow me to. I was like, you know what, sure. Like, and we were in my Airbnb, and she was like massaging me, but like she was like intuitively guided, like where to put her hands and the pressure points and stuff. And then she started speaking in tongue, what I called it back then, with light
yeah,
language,
yeah.
speaking in tongue. And I was kind of getting freaked out, but she did this whole thing, and it was like a miracle. It was almost like she performed a miracle. My back literally, I actually cried whenever I stood up afterwards because it felt like I had a new set of legs. And I called my dad and I told him I was like in tears. I was like literally like this girl just healed my back. Like it was incredible. And I was walking around and I was just like I didn't even know how to use my new body.
Mm,
And for the rest of that trip, I thought my back was 100%, and it was. Like it was gone. I was so happy. I was like, oh my God, like I don't have back pain anymore. This is
mm.
the best possible trip ever.
Yeah, yeah.
And what happened was I got back home and went back to my, and on the way to work the following Monday morning, I was still in construction. I was just driving to work, no, doing absolutely nothing, driving. Like somebody shot a lightning bolt at my body. My back pain came back on the way to work.
Right.
It came straight back. And wasn't doing anything. And it hit me. I'm like, what just happened? Why did that just happen?
Mm,
And it was just like business as usual, walking around trying to correct my back. And I realized that I in Hawaii on that trip, I think I was like, I literally exited the Matrix program that I was residing in back home.
right,
That 40-hour work week, that whole cycle, right?
right.
And I had this experience, and honestly, the whole time I was on that trip, I felt like we were living in 5D already. Like it was just like didn't even feel like Earth. And everyone there collectively agreed it was like it was real, it was surreal. And I think we were like temporarily in another or a higher frequency
Hmm.
where my back pain didn't exist anymore. And it was just such a beautiful experience. And it was it only happened to show me that it's possible. And then when I came back, inevitably I was going to come back and go to work.
Hmm.
And when I came back and went to work and the pain came back, that's when I realized like, oh, this is a program. This is like a quite literally a frequency, a matrix, a simulation that I'm living in.
Yeah.
And also and then when I finally quit my job, the back pain didn't go away. But what happened was I was also addicted to alcohol. I wasn't I wouldn't drink all week, but every weekend I had to have a beer. Friday came around, I couldn't resist it. I would like become hangry, but I needed a beer. Like I was just like I needed it was bad. And I thought, man, my God, how am I ever going to quit? Well, when I quit that job and broke free from that simulation, from that program, all my alcohol cravings left with it.
Mm.
Never needed a beer again on a Friday night. And I was like, oh my God, like we don't understand how much of a program it actually is until you
Yeah.
break free from it.
Right. Right.
And when I broke free from it, sorry, I'll finish the story here. The moment I decided it was COVID had hit and They were making us mask up at work and all these stupid rules. And I was like, I'm done with it. I'm not doing this anymore. This is absolutely ridiculous. My soul was begging me to get out.
Mm.
I finally made the phone call. I was getting ready to make the phone call to my boss on the spot in the middle of the day. And I had a profound spiritual experience. I literally saw, I got a vision of, you could call them my guides, guardian angels, whatever you want, standing around what looked like a crystal ball observing me. And they literally were celebrating like somebody had just won the Super Bowl. Like a, you know what I'm saying? Like they were hugging each other and in tears and celebrating. Like, oh my God, I can't believe he just did it. Like they had just been sitting there every day watching me go to work, just waste my life away, waiting for me to break free.
Yeah.
When I did, I had that experience, and then they just showered me with this love. It was just bliss.
Mm.
And it was overcome with it on a job site and in the middle of the day, and I just broke down in tears. I was just crying. And like, thank God I was in this room by myself because you don't want to cry on a construction site around these blue collar guys, you know? And I was like, it confirmed that I was making the right decision.
Right.
And then that phone call went from the scariest thing I ever did to the easiest thing I ever did.
Mhm.
And I knew in that moment I was making the right decision. And then when I broke free from that is when the alcohol cravings went away. All these amazing opportunities showed up in my life,
Right.
like they were just waiting there behind this dam, and the dam cracked and then broke, and I was just flooded with opportunities that I would have never known were possible had I stayed there.
Mm.
So it was just this amazing experience, but it really highlighted and emphasized the fact that I was existing in a program.
Mm. Mm. No, that's a brilliant place I wanted to get to because we talk about spirituality and you know, I'm of the opinion that spirituality is learning the rules of the system, the rules of the game, so to speak. In that, like, like a computer game, the rules you've got to follow, the things you can and can't do, etc.
Right.
And I think with regards to the simulation, people like all throughout history, like you said, like these amazing people throughout history who've transcended nature, transcended natural law, because we think we're bound by natural law. But I mean, all throughout history, there are records of people who have, in meditations, have levitated, so the law of gravity stopped working.
Hmm.
Healings, like you experienced. I've heard of people, modern people. I know people who have shapeshifted into animals, in not in a occultic sense, like in a benevolent sense.
Right.
It's like all the things that we know are possible. It's like we have to. It's like we're learning. We're on a journey of how to learn to not be confined to the matrix, the simulation. And when we
Hmm.
break the code, we become a huge threat to the system. And the
Yeah.
system will try and squash you. It will try and bring you back in. It will try and lure you back in. Sometimes through enticement, sometimes through brutal force. Um, but like, how many of us like? Did you ever watch the series Heroes years ago?
Yeah, I actually did.
I
Yeah.
absolutely love that. It was like
It
just
kind of
these,
was like X-Men in a way.
yeah, yeah, but it was just ordinary people who just like they just had this feeling like what am I doing in this life? And
Hmm.
they were questioning their reality and like you said, when they made like some kind of choice, they stepped out of their boring 3D life, like their abilities were awakened. And there was that guy who it was I think he was a doctor and he went to the top of a building. He just knew he could fly. He just knew it. He'd never done it before. And he just
Right.
jumped off. And because he made that leap like you did, boom, he learned how to fly. And I was like,
Right.
what a brilliant series that was.
Right.
And I
Yeah,
think,
well,
go on,
go
sorry.
ahead. I I've tried to fly before when I was 5 years old.
Who hasn't? Have
I I knew I climbed to the top of my slide in my backyard and I knew I could fly and I did. I jumped off head first and landed face first on the ground. My mom happened to catch it just in time. Um, but I literally landed face first and my bottom teeth went through my lip and like so you can't really fly like you might think you can fly. But in my mind as a kid, I
you
thought
just knew
I
it.
probably tapped into that. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I've had dreams where I've flown, and this is another thing I wanted to get into is the dream world
Right,
with regards to simulation theory, because I've had dreams a number of times, and one particular one that stands out to me was when I used to live at home with my parents when I was a lot younger, and I just had this dream, and I was on the road outside my house, and it was night. It was dark, so it was in real time. It was in the night, and I was out on the road, and I just looked up, and I just knew I could fly. So I just ran down the road and jumped, and I just went. Whew. I just lifted
right,
off, and I had this whole dream of just like flying. You're looking down on the area, and just it was incredible. And I was just like, yeah, like loving it. And then I just came back into my body, and the rest is history. And
right,
boy, do I wish I could do that in now, and who says
right.
I can't. But with regards to the dream world, a lot of people think that when we go to sleep, they are that we are going back home almost, or into the other, going beyond the simulation, the
Right.
matrix.
hmm
I mean, you're a dreamer. You have things in dreams, right?
I mean, yeah, primarily that's how all this started for me was,
Mm.
dream warfare, which I've
Of
now
course, in your
called.
book. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know, I didn't have that term for it back then.
Mm.
But I realized that the dream world is also something that can be manipulated and then it's targeted as well. And there's also CIA documents on that. And there's a
Yeah.
psionic ability called dream walking, where you can literally astral project your consciousness into someone else's dream bubble and even target them. And the CIA has like detailed papers laid out on this, and it's kind of scary.
Mm.
But they have documents on recording your dreams, quite literally, and watching them on a television display.
Mm.
And like they've done studies, and the movie Future World kind of shows this beautifully. Is that they're experimenting with this technology. They hook this girl up to all these like electrodes and stuff, and then um, they observe her dreams and see what she dreams about, and they use the dreams to actually try to manipulate real life scenarios, because they know what she's dreaming about. So if they can make things happen in her life that match her dreams, she thinks it's like a profound thing, right?
Mhm.
That's happening. That's really happening.
Right.
And there's a lot, like we can do a whole episode on dreams, dream warfare, and what
Yeah,
dreams
yeah,
are. But
yeah.
I had to learn dreams are also beautiful too. It's not
Mm.
necessarily a negative thing, but it's just another like it. You're not. I don't agree that you're escaping the matrix when you're dreaming. I think it's just another layer of it that's still controlled by the archons or whatever you want to call them, or even intelligence communities that have access to this occult knowledge, right?
Mhm.
And it's like actually Max Spears said it the best. He's like, if Earth is a game, the occultist or the elitist, they they have the cheat book. It's like
Right.
they're living life with the cheat codes, and we don't. We just have to figure it out. And that's kind of what the situation is. It's like anybody with this occult knowledge in these secret societies, and even the higher levels in the private sector and these intelligence communities, even the military industrial complex, like it's all compartmentalized. But in those highest factions, I think that they have access to knowledge, and they actually know us better than we know ourselves, and that's how they're able to manipulate things, including the dream world and the dream realm, which is a very beautiful place where profound things can happen and experiences. And I think it's every bit as real, if not more real, than the reality that we're living down here. Because we've all woken up from those dreams that felt so real, we wonder how it wasn't real.
Mhm.
So that's really interesting, but it was through the dreams that I was being attacked that actually forced me, because I actually started this whole journey not believing in God. When I was young, I was born into a Christian family and Catholic because my parents were separated. So I was going to both churches, and it was all being pushed on me, and I didn't want it. I didn't want anything to do with it. And then I broke free from that when, as soon as I didn't have to go anymore, I didn't. I found some friends that didn't believe in anything. Well, I attracted them into my life because that's obviously just what I had set up for myself. And you can call myself an atheist. I would call myself an atheist. Back then, I didn't have a term for it.
Mhm.
It was just science, evolution, nothing
Mhm.
happens when we die, about all that stuff they want you to believe in, because they want you to believe in the, well, that's a whole other story. We won't even get into that. But I understood that once these dark things started happening to me after my mother passed away, I was forced to believe in all this stuff that I had laughed at before. But I was believing in the bad guys. I was believing in the darkness. I knew the demons were real. I was encountering them. I was having these horrible things happen to me. And then I realized, well, if I believe in the bad guys, like the good guys have to exist too. You know,
Right.
like I know fundamentally I'm encountering these demons. So like Jesus and all these other figures, that has to be real too. And it was through that darkness that I actually found the light and helped me break free from that programming in that sense. So, like we said earlier, the dark always serves the light, but it was through that dream realm that I had those experiences that actually forced me to find God, find Jesus. And then it was through a session I had with actually Laura Van Tyne that I had like an entity attachment, and she was helping me at a conference at East Eddy Ranch, and like I had picked it up while I was there. It was this whole long story, but she saw me. She saw it on me right away, and I knew I had it. I felt it on me. It was wild. Like, and she basically did like emergency surgery on me. We were in a guest house, and she cleared everyone out, and she sat me down and basically performed what I would call an exorcism to a point where my body was like I was convulsing, like I didn't have control of my body anymore. And she pulled this thing out of me. It wasn't just the current entity that I picked up, but there was something much deeper that left with it. And then she was like, "Do you know who you are?" And I'm like, "Tyler." She's like, "No, like, have you ever gotten any information on a soul level?" I'm like, "No." And she's like, "Well, I'm not going to tell you anything, but," she's like, "I think you're much more powerful than you realize." And she said this entity, like she's like, "You're carrying the Christ consciousness, like you're carrying that energy." And she's like, "This entity that just left told me," I asked why what it was doing, and it said it was assigned to you at birth to stop you from remembering who you were.
Mhm.
And that made so much sense to me in that moment. That's why I couldn't stand the church, even outside of that. And I never admitted this to anybody until later. Anytime I would hear the word Jesus, I got triggered, like angry.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it was like this devil on my shoulder was just always sitting there, and it wasn't doing anything or bothering me until I would get close to remembering who I was, or even Jesus or anything, Christ. And then it would come and trigger me, and I would be angry, and I would didn't want nothing to do with it, and I would just run from it, and I would actually make belittle religions and make a mockery of anyone that believed in that stuff. And then once that thing left me, I was able to start going on this journey of remembering who I was and actually tapping back into that. But the way she described it, it was like it was literally assigned to you to stop you from ever remembering who you were. And when she removed this thing, I my eyes changed colors, and that's on record. I have witnesses.
I've heard of that before. Yeah, yeah.
My eyes literally changed colors after I got out of that session. People were looking at me like they didn't know me, and everyone was like, "What's going on with your eyes? Are your eyes a different color?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" I looked in the mirror. I was like, "Holy shit! My eyes used to be dark brown. You can't tell here. They used to be like almost black, like dark
Yeah,
brown,
yeah.
of my whole life." And they just got like a much lighter brown, like a much lighter, beautiful color,
Mm,
you know?
right.
And the first picture somebody took of me, there was this rainbow around me. And I don't even have the photo anymore. I was like, "Oh my God." Like it was just amazing, right? And I, and then I took a nap that afternoon. I was so energetically wiped out. I took a nap, and my consciousness was taken. I was shown this demon, which was actually a reptilian, is how I was shown.
Mhm.
Um, I was shown this demon, and he had been, as a punishment, sent to the fairy realm with full memory of who he was. So he was literally, I saw him on this branch in this tree, and it was like the movie Ferngully and his fairies, and he was like basically in a fairy body pouting because as punishment, he had to go live as this puny little weak fairy that had no strength. And he was like, but they didn't take away his memories, so he knew who he used to be, and now he had to live this life as this female fairy. It was as a punishment. That I mean, that's what I was shown. Like
Brilliant.
you can't make this shit up. And I was just like, it was actually the most satisfying thing I had ever seen.
Right.
Like I was like, take that, motherfucker. Good. And
That's brilliant.
yeah, so I mean, life reality isn't what we think it is. It's so much beyond what we can even comprehend,
It is, and truth be told, I mean that's why I've started this podcast because I think there's so much I've heard over the years, and honestly, I've put this off for about 3 years, truthfully, to
Hmm.
have these kind of discussions. And I mean, there was a number of things I wanted to bring into this conversation, but I think we've been going quite a while now. But just a couple of things I wanted to mention is I did a show with Truth Seeker, and
Hmm.
something has been coming back to me, and it alludes to what you've just been saying about what Laura Van Tyne said. Is this concept that in some dimension, which I believe is beyond the control, we exist. And I think, in the New Age they call it the higher self and things. And I don't think we really listen to what we're saying sometimes.
Right.
That I think there are many, certainly in this generation, many very, very high level beings that have incarnated. And
Yeah.
I think if you're drawn to this kind of conversation, you might want to be starting asking who you really are. Um, we're all one. I'm a Christ person. I'm a Jesus man. Okay, but we still have our own unique identity in that. Um, and we looked into this concept because I mean, we looked at the concept of reincarnation. That is it a lost like idea in Christianity, and you can't read the Bible anymore without looking at this idea that many of the incarnated people figures in the Bible are have links, if not are some of these ancient beings, angelic beings, right? And
Right.
that's controversial, and I'm trying to be careful of what I'm saying. And as I'm saying this, something is shifting in my ear right now.
Well, I mean, you're honest. I would say I'll say it for you. I think that's absolutely true.
Yeah,
And I think you're getting that nudge because that needs to be known. That needs to be understood. That's how we break free from
I feel
this.
like saying that so something's activating in people.
Yeah.
That they are much bigger and much more significant than they've ever realized. And like you say, on some level in the simulation, I think they can monitor who's coming in to
Yeah.
to incarnate on this world, and like you had that entity attached to you to try and stop you. Many people are getting rid of their own attachments right now, and that's what this whole process is about. To remember, Lion King,
Right.
remember who you are, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I think this is a really really pivotal moment in history, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, we are all more powerful than we remember.
Mm,
And when you start to remember that or tap into that or start to break programming, that's when I say in my book, they send in reinforcements to keep you at bay.
yeah.
And that can appear in any number of forms.
Mhm,
And most likely in the whole name of the game for them is creating weapons that you can't recognize.
mhm,
So they'll subtly manipulate things in your reality to just take you off your path, and you don't even understand that you have strayed off that path because it's just trickster deception energy.
mhm,
And we have to be careful for that. That's why it's so important to know who you are and be self-aware and understand whenever something is being manipulated, right? And it'll just be like a subtle nuance that you might not even pay attention to ordinarily, but one day you're gonna be like, why did that happen? That means something.
mhm,
And then you follow that and then you realize, oh, like I could have actually been pulled way off here. In
mhm,
fact, this morning I woke up. This happens to me all the time. I had two books fall over the other day while I'm working on this documentary, and this one book is just standing there, and it's The Secret Space Program and Cosmic Whistleblowers. And I'm looking through it, and there's actually some amazing things that I want to incorporate as like quotes and stuff into the film that I think are really going to put the cherry on top. But I was like shown that, right? So that's a positive example.
mhm.
This morning I woke up. I'm doing this parasite cleanse right now, and I have had this weird thing with stink bugs. You know what a stink bug is?
Yeah, we don't have them
Um,
over here, but yeah, yeah.
yeah, so especially in St. Louis, they would always be in my house, and especially in this one area. I'm like, what does this mean? And I went to this park. It was a military base, and I was like, I went through this no trespassing part, exploring because I just like to do that shit. And I started getting bombarded with stink bugs. And literally, they were like dive bombing me and hitting me to where I had to leave. I'm like, what is going on? Like, what
Mm,
is with these stink bugs? What are they trying to tell me? So I looked it up, and stink bugs can appear as a warning sign, right?
okay.
So I took it as a warning to get out of there. I was like, okay, well, they were definitely warning me to get out of there. But I'm like, what does that mean for the ones I'm seeing at home? And in meditation, I sat with that and I was shown that they're literally landing where a portal is in my house, where it's like it needs to be closed down, where like these entities are coming through and literally attacking me in my sleep and manipulating my reality and stuff. So I'm like, oh, they've been trying to identify these portals for years, and I didn't know what the hell they were doing. So once I understood that, and I would see one and clear that, and they'd stop showing up. I
Wow.
haven't seen a stink bug in forever. I woke up this morning, and on my parasite cleanse, on the lid of the parasite cleanse, was a stink bug in my
No
house.
way. No way.
Dude, I don't even know how it got in my house or where. I haven't seen one since I've been here,
Mm,
And immediately I was like, oh, they're trying to like, I need to clear this bottle. I don't know why or what
mm.
it means. So I had some frankincense and I sprayed it. I had some Palo Santo. I burned, I smudged the whole parasite cleanse kit and just cleared it all. And I called in Jesus. I did this whole thing, and just made sure everything was clear before I took that and ingested that into my body
Yeah.
because on some level, some way, somebody, some entity could have manipulated the molecular structure of that parasite cleanse, and that could have had a negative effect.
Mm.
I don't know. That's just where my mind goes, but I take those extra steps now
Yeah.
because I've been taken off my path so many times that if I don't start being hyper aware and be like pay attention to things like that, then I could easily be pulled, led astray. And I'm just trying to make sure that doesn't happen anymore. So
Right.
that might sound paranoid, but there's no fear in what I did. Actually, I just took it as like I was grateful that that bug was there that made me just pause for a moment and ask the question, what does this mean? Does it mean anything? And then even if it didn't mean anything, I still did a clearing on my house and made sure that I'm good for the day, and if anything, it reminded me to do that.
Hmm. Right. That's it. And spiritual hygiene, I think, is crucial in these times
Right.
as well. Most definitely. I mean, I'm, you know, speaking to myself absolutely here. Um, because I've practiced kind of like I guess you would call it kind of Christ-centered mystical Christianity for several years now, and like meditation and things come to you when you're in that state, and you alluded to it before, and I'll never forget that several years ago. I was learning to slow my breath, getting the right brain waves and things like that. I was just practicing it, and I managed to get in this place like I'm there. I could feel this space open up around me. Like I'd gone
Right.
beyond the matrix, and I knew I had. And just a single sentence dropped into my mind. Like I don't know where it came from. I don't know who it was, but this was in around 2015, and this triggered my awakening. Right, and it was the cosmos is contained within human DNA.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And I was just
Yes.
like, where did that come from? Like, and I've been unpacking that for the last, nearly 10 years. And I think I've just about starting to scratch the surface.
Right. Yeah,
And,
the universe, like all of space and time,
mm,
exists inside of everyone that you meet. Like
right.
it's like literally every cell, every atom is a black hole. Like, and there's like people that discuss this in depth.
Mm,
And like literally the universe is inside of us. That's what I was
right.
trying to say. And which would mean source is inside of us.
Exactly, exactly. And we are containers. I think this is why there is such a battle to enslave us in this matrix, because the potential that we have is so beyond cosmic. I think certainly this area of the cosmos and this dimension is waiting for us to remember, waiting for us to realize who we actually are and what we're
Right.
capable of. And I appreciate all the 3D things that are going on and the politics, and I'm grateful for everything that's happened over the last 5 years,
Right.
because I think there are agendas to cause a lot of damage that have been subverted. But I think we're in a grace period now where we have to get this. We have to have these conversations, and we have to remember, and we have
Hmm.
to think about where we were before we came here and things like that.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
yeah, go on. What are you going to say?
No, I just think it's an amazing time to be alive. I think
Mm,
it's a very crucial, pivotal point in history that I think we'll look back on and tell stories about for a long time.
I agree.
Because we're literally, I think, for the first time ever, or at least in thousands of years, the light side has the upper hand in this spiritual war.
Hmm.
And I think we're starting to see signs of that. And
Right.
that's why things like this conversation are allowed to happen now, or even
Exactly.
happening at all, because the planetary consciousness is breaking free from those chains.
Yeah.
And I think, everybody that's like fighting it right now and resisting the change, like, it's interesting. Everybody wants change until they have to change.
Exactly.
And what Trump is doing or anything that's happening right now, it's forcing people to change
Hmm.
and it's forcing people to look at themselves, whether they realize it or not.
Hmm.
And it's like it's that narcissist empath relationship, right? Like a
Right.
lot of the things that people are angry about are actually within themselves. They're angry with themselves,
Right.
but they want to blame it on somebody outside of them, whether it's Trump or their neighbor or their spouse, it doesn't matter, right?
Hmm.
And until you can realize that none of it is happening to you, it's all happening for you,
Correct.
and you're the one you should be pointing the finger at, and not anyone outside of you. And then ask yourself why you're being triggered, what it's trying to show you, the whole shadow work,
Correct. Yeah.
method.
Yeah.
But there's something to that because you can start to create a new baseline for yourself to where you're not triggered by these external events and what this person does, or this politician does, this world
Hmm.
leader says. Some people let it rule their lives,
Right.
literally,
Hmm.
and I see it happen, and it's a sad thing. And coming to that fundamental understanding that you literally control the outcome of everything that happens to you,
Hmm.
whether or not, and there is external interference always, but whenever you are hyper self-aware, which not many people are, and I'm not even, right? But when you try to be that, when you strive for that, you have a lot more control over your reality and who you are and what happens to you, and you can actually start attracting positive things instead of negative things, and you don't have to play the victim to that stuff. And it's a whole dance, right?
Right.
But this is what we're here to learn and understand, and it's going to look different for everybody. So what works for me might not work for you, but there's the same fundamental principles apply to, all life here on Earth. And I think that, we have to reevaluate who we are and where we're going. And I do think there's a positive future no matter how we look at it, because I just think that old satanic system is dying regardless.
It is. It's fizzling out. Absolutely agree. And yeah, I think we're. If people say, "Oh, we're going to the stars," we're in the stars. You know,
Right. We are on a star. We are a star.
we're already there, and I think that's
Right.
another consciousness shift as well. But Tyler, thank you very much for joining me. Just before we go, I mean, you've got a trip to Hawaii coming up, I believe.
Yeah, so a conference. It's Journey to Truth's fifth conference. This is a different take on what we've done for the past 4 years. It's on the Big Island, and it's April 20th through the 24th. And we're going to be only 3 days in the venue, which is it's a beautiful venue that opens up to the outdoors. It's not like you're cooped up inside,
Hmm.
which is important to us, especially being in Hawaii.
Yeah,
And then the other 2 days are excursions out in the water, get on the boat, some snorkeling, dolphins and whales, um, sacred site tour, go to national park, kind of just explore the island. And it'll be like a retreat slash conference slash vacation with your soul family. And there are about 25 tickets left now. And you can find all that information at journeytotruth.online if you want to join us.
amazing, amazing. And I've already said this to you, but you've got privately, but you've got a documentary coming out in January, right, about the secret space program.
Yep, it's not even fully complete yet. I'm still working on it, and it's going to be up until the last minute. It's a soft release in January.
Yeah. Okay.
So we're releasing it in a theater here in Sedona, private screening. It's sold out. It only holds like 43 people or something, but it's sold out right away. Actually, it's pretty cool. And we're basically it's just like a test, a test audience for the film, where I
Okay.
want to gauge everyone's reaction and see what they thought of it, and then immediately the weekend after that, it's premiering in a conference, the Odyssey conference put on by Tony Rodriguez on that Friday night. So uh, basically, I just want to see how it does
Hmm.
and watch it with an audience and get a feel for it and see if anything needs to be changed or whatever.
Hmm.
And then we have avenues. We're talking with people to get it on Amazon Prime and even Hulu and the streaming services.
Amazing.
However that works out. We don't know yet. We've never done this before, but I've made some connections and it should happen. But there's no ETA on this official release date yet.
Okay.
So
Okay. Understood. So,
yeah.
I mean, obviously, in as soon as I kind of want to get you and Aaron on to present a case for the secret space program because I think it's something that, particularly on my audience, may be completely unaware of, and I think it's
Right.
important moving forward. And it explains a lot of why things have happened the way they have, politically, and it will fill in a lot of blanks for people. So we'll talk about
Yeah.
that in the future.
Hmm.
So Tyler, thank you so much for joining me. That was incredible. I'm going away with a lot of things to think about now. So any last words, or are we done?
No, we're done. Bye. No, no.
Excellent.
Thanks for having me on. I just want to say, like, I really think this podcast is amazing. I think you're on to something, and there's just I'm an energy reader. Like that's just something I've been able to do my whole life, and I didn't realize that it was a gift until I got older, and other people couldn't do it. But even it doesn't matter if it's the energy of a person, a project, a photo, whatever.
Mhm,
And whenever you put your first episode out, I was like, there's something here, right?
mhm.
And then you didn't film in that studio again. I'm like, oh, he was just that was misleading, and the studio sucked. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Um, no, it wasn't just the conversation. It was the energy behind it. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be something, right?
Mhm.
And then I don't know why, but scrolling past your thumbnails, I don't know who's designing them or what it is, but
I am.
okay, but there's something like it's like you hear it like in sports or in life, either got it or you don't. Well,
Right.
I think your podcast I think it's got it. And I
Thank
think
you.
there's energy behind even the thumbnails. There's something there that people are attracted to. And I see this doing big things. And whatever that trajectory looks like, it doesn't have to mean like overnight success and become Sean Ryan or, in fact, I don't think that's going to happen for any of us because I think those people are on another level and they've actually been bought and paid
Funded.
for in
Yeah.
some case. Yeah.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, as much as I listen to those, I mean, Sean Ryan just is releasing an episode with Hunter Biden. You think he really wanted to interview Hunter Biden? Like, come on.
Yeah.
So
Right.
but anyway, I really think that you're onto something here, and I see this turning into something big. So I just want to encourage you to stick with it.
Thank you.
And anyone listening to this, like, start sharing this out, because his Facebook page already got banned for this podcast, and it's only like 2 weeks in. And I think it's because what you're doing here is actually profound in the sense that you're bridging two communities, right?
Mm.
You've come from that religious background, and like there's this whole galactic component and the spiritual component outside of that religious box that gets demonized, and you're actually building that bridge. So to help people
Right.
understand, like it's not only all connected, but there's a literal bridge here to help you out of that, and it doesn't have to be scary. So I
Yeah.
think that's what the planet needs right now, and I think that you're onto something. So congratulations for the new podcast,
Thank
and
you.
I'm happy to be here, and definitely looking forward to doing it again.
We'll do it again. Thank you. Thank you for the encouragement. I appreciate it a lot. And like I say, I'll be honest, I've modeled a lot of my infrastructure on Journey to Truth. I'll just being honest. No,
So
because
hey,
you do a great job, and thank you for all you do as well. But this isn't an arse kissing podcast, so we'll leave that there.
right. Well,
Thanks,
I
Tyler.
wasn't saying that for you. I was saying that for the audience
I
and
get
you.
it.
But
No, thank you. No,
I
I
want people.
appreciate that.
I want people to understand that like this. There's something here.
No, thank you. No, no, genuinely appreciate that a lot, and it means a lot. So we'll end it there, and I'll speak to you soon.
All right, later.